If you've been paying attention over the last few years, you probably noticed that really pretty games aren't always that good. Welcome to Chaos Gaming. Today we're going to be looking at some absolutely stunning games that ended up not being very good. And we did the reverse of this the other day. We did amazing games that looked horrible. So you guys drop a like, make sure you're following the page with those notifications on, and let's kick things off with Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I bet you forgot the game even ever came out. Released in 2016. Catalyst was a soft reboot of the cult hit Mirror's Edge. Now, the original game was released in 2008, and it was a very cool first-person parkour action game with some very unique art style. It was addicting. The original game didn't sell well, but it garnered a following over the years. Many people still remember it for its greatness. Unfortunately, EA couldn't let the thing rest, and we got a reboot that sucked the life out of the original. Mirror's Edge Catalyst looked amazing, carrying over the first game's unique art style and improving on the details, but the gameplay, not so much. Very stiff, unfun, and void of pretty much everything that made the first one so memorable. Mirror's Edge Catalyst came and went without anybody registering its presence. You know another one that they just didn't hit a home run with? Battlefront 2015. Maybe one of the biggest disappointments in gaming history. The reboot of the Battlefront series, it's one of the best looking games of this generation, okay? Or the last generation. It holds up today. Developed by DICE, published by EA. It used a technique called photogrammetry to essentially rebuild the Star Wars environments and vehicles within the game, creating by far the best looking Star Wars game ever at that time. So what else did Battlefront have going for it? Nothing. It may have looked and sounded amazing, but it was ripped apart. It didn't have any content. It was shallow, unbalanced gameplay, and very expensive season passes, which was a slap in the face because the base game didn't have any content. Plus, no Clone Wars, no sequel trilogy. Looking back at it, I mean, really, what was the point of the game? Next up, I played through this entire game, and it was fun. It was fun for a button smasher. Rise, Son of Rome. Now, it isn't as bad as some other launch titles that have come throughout the years, but it's not great. Developed by Crytek, Rise was a launch title for the Xbox One. Hack and slasher set in ancient Rome, which really should have been awesome, unfortunately. Like many console launch titles, it was more of a tech showcase than a game. Yes, it looked excellent and had some incredible eye candy, but the gameplay, it was pretty shallow, it was full of bugs. Today, it's a decent hack and slash game as long as you're not expecting anything mind-blowing, but back in 2013, it was a pretty big letdown. Microsoft was hyping up the Xbox One to be an incredible piece of technology, and this was our first impression of it. It looked great, but it was shallow and pretty buggy. You know another one that looked great? Agony. Now, I feel like I've been talking about Agony a lot recently. That's probably because it's Agony. Haha, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell for more amazing jokes just like this one. Released in 2018, Agony is a walking simulator disguised as a horror game where you played as a soul traveling through the afterlife attempting to escape you know where. Much like Rise, Agony felt more like a tech demo than a game, like, hey, look what we can do kind of thing, as opposed to, hey, let's have some fun with this video game you spent money on kind of thing. Now, it also didn't help that Agony's definition of horror was just throwing gore and nudity at you while expecting you to just run off screaming or something. I don't know. Don't play the game, don't buy the game, don't do anything with the game. Next up was truly a disappointment. Far Cry New Dawn. Now, Far Cry 5 was an upper-tier Far Cry game. It managed to optimize the franchise formula far better than other recent Ubisoft titles. Unfortunately, that game was followed up by a spin-off called Far Cry New Dawn, which is essentially a whole bunch of copy-pasted Far Cry 5 assets with names changed and the color swapped, and not a very good story. It also didn't help that New Dawn was stuffed full of microtransactions, many of which would give you an advantage in your gameplay. So can these pay-to-win microtransactions please get out of AAA games? Please, especially single-player ones? Come on! New Dawn had some fun value to it, but ultimately, it was just a worse version of Far Cry 5, so you should probably just go play Far Cry 5 instead. Now we've reached number 5. Rage. 10 years ago, we got this thing. It was the first ID Software game since Doom 3, and people's expectations were high. After all, ID Software is one of the most fabled legacies in gaming. Rage was a massive game. It came on 2 discs for the 360 and the PS3. Remember when big games had to come on multiple discs? Now, it looked phenomenal, but the gameplay, not so much. Super shallow, repetitive, not exciting, and the story was just plain lame. Now, when I say the game looked phenomenal, I mean it. It has some of the best character animation ever in a first-person shooter. It just sucks that the rest of the game ended up being such a letdown. It could have been one of the best shooters ever made, but instead, it was just another forgettable shooter from the 2010s. Now let's go to our little blue friend, Sonic 06. Now, before you dislike the video, let's try to be fair here. Sonic 06 is one of the worst games of all time. We all know that. It was supposed to be an amazing reboot of the franchise, but due to lots of problems behind the scenes, it ended up being a broken mess. Okay, but there's one department that deserves praise: the visuals. Now, Sonic 06 may have ugly character models, but the environments and the cutscenes were way ahead of their time, and sadly, they went unappreciated due to the rest of the game being so crap. If you look at the gameplay and the cutscenes of the game, and keep in mind that it launched in 2006, yeah, the gameplay's no good, but the story's no good. One of the worst games in the series, but you clicked on a list of bad games with good graphics, and you know what? Sonic 06 got the number 4 spot today. Let's move on. Days Gone. Released 2 years ago. Supposed to be Sony's new big IP, but due to multiple delays and reported trouble in the studio, it ended up being a letdown. Another post-apocalyptic zombie sandbox, crafting, stealth, third-person shooting. Sounds like 50 other zombie games we know, and it's because Days Gone was a generic game. And that was part of the reason why people forgot about it already, despite it being a big Sony exclusive. Now, aside from the forgettable gameplay, it had a super bland story, lots of technical issues. If there was a good part of the game, though, guess what? It was the visuals. It looks stunning. Pretty cool spectacle with a giant horde of zombies chasing you through these beautiful landscapes, but that cannot save the game. If Days Gone had had another year in the oven, maybe it would have been great. But now, it's one of the most forgettable PS4 exclusives of all time. Now this next one, this one hurts because this is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. The Order 1886. I mean, it's forgettable, right? Sony exclusive? Jeez, it was released 6 years ago. And it was a huge letdown. After the PS4 was dominating the Xbox One in the sales department, Sony was riding high on the success of games like Bloodborne and The Last of Us Remastered. The Order 1886 was a giant step backwards. Now, before I say anything else, let me say, one more time, best looking game on consoles ever. I mean, it's incredible, and it actually ran good. However, the gameplay was shallow. The story, it sucked, and the whole thing could be finished in a matter of hours. Then once you finish the story, that's it. No multiplayer, no challenge mode, nothing. $60, please, thank you. The Order 1886 could have been fantastic, and I still think there's potential with the concept of the game if somebody wants to pick it up. At number 1 today, though, dear to my heart and yours, Anthem. Yeah, I actually forgot about the game. Released 2 years ago, this was EA's attempt to drop in on the Destiny fan base, but it ultimately resulted in the near death of BioWare. Anthem was an open-world sci-fi online looter shooter, similar to Destiny, although BioWare reportedly had a rule against even mentioning Destiny in the offices. Yeah, maybe if they looked at their competition, they would have made a more fulfilling game. It was ripped apart by critics and gamers, shallow gameplay, microtransactions, but like the other games on this list, it looked incredible. It was built on the Frostbite 3 engine, and it was nice. Now, there's rumors about a full overhaul and re-release of the game on the next-gen consoles, but honestly, I doubt it. EA lost a lot of money on this project, and I seriously doubt they're going to pour more into it. They're probably just going to cut their losses, sweep it under the rug, and move on. And there you have it. Those are really crappy games that looked really good. Let me know one game that was deserving of being on this list that didn't make it, and I'll see you guys soon.